Hi.
Hey there, it's good to finally meet you in person. Well,
Yes. I was just gonna say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we're making this happen.
yeah, I'm actually glad I'm glad that you actually agreed to all of
Yeah.
this.
I'm in my kitchen right now. And if you hear clip clomp, clump clomp, it's my dog. He's pacing because my husband Chris is not here and he's the favorite. So he's looking like out each window, like, is he here? Is he here? Is he here?
That's how
Sadly.
that's how my dog Lucy feels whenever my pa comes home from work.
Oh
So
my,
I can deal with that.
I know. It just makes me feel like chopped liver though.
Ah, don't worry, she loves you. I mean, your dog loves you.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad we could do this. And it's like fun to talk to you after we've been tweeting so
Yeah,
much back and forth. I feel
yeah,
like Twitter needs to like after you have so many Twitter interactions, I feel like it should just kind of ping you and be like, hey, you want to like Zoom with this person? You want to
yeah.
like have
I actually wanted to talk to you about that on DM, but I was scared. I was afraid that would be too personal, so I didn't want to direct message.
Oh yeah, no, anytime. I am slow to my Twitter messages sometimes. Sometimes I go in that special sneaky little folder that is like, but we follow each other, so you just go
Yeah.
right in my regular.
That's good. It's
Yeah,
good. Like, how's your day going? How's
it's
your
going
whole?
well. The week's been good. It's we're on I work on Big City Greens. I'm an art director on Big City Greens. I should start with. So that's been my week is we're actually my art department right now is on hiatus between season 3 and season 4. So
Oh,
things have
I'm
been
excited for that. I'm excited
yes,
for that.
yeah. Yeah, and things have been like I've honestly we've had such a slowdown time even for the art directors. I'm just working in post-production. Which is amazing. It's just like way slower. So to answer your question, it's been a great week. And this weekend, I mean, so far so good. Um, just kind of a slow morning for me, but yeah, I don't really have any plans this weekend even. It's kind of nice.
Oh, I got my plans set this week. I'm about to see the new Dragon Ball Super movie coming out on
Oh,
Friday.
oh shoot. Okay. I'm so bad at keeping up um with when great movies come out, like especially the anime smaller releases. I imagine it's only at select theaters.
No, I think it's worldwide.
Oh, really? Okay.
So
Great.
yeah, I think the movie is nationwide because Crunchyroll is distributing the movie. So that's something I'm really excited about. Plus,
Mm-hmm.
Zeno Robinson's in it, so
Uh
I'm a huge Zeno Robinson fan. He's my inspiration for
same.
voice acting.
I love Zeno. Wonderful. Yeah.
He is great as Remy. He's also great as the Golden Guard from Meow
Uh-huh.
House.
Yeah. It's been really fun to just see what he's up to next. And yeah, he brought Remy a long ways. So and now I love Remy's one of my favorite characters. So I always love when we have like a Remy episode.
I'm a huge Tilly fan. I love Tilly. She's just a bottle of energy.
Yes, and she's very quotable. There's lots of good
Very quotable.
one-liners. Yes. Yeah, I think one of my favorites is there's an episode where Cricket and Officer Keys is trying to solve a crime and a crime and Tilly just kind of comes out of nowhere and I think Cricket's like, where have you been? And she's like, I live my own life. Like yeah, she's great.
Like I have so many questions about Big City Greens, but I'll start with the first one, and it's regarding to your job as an art director. Like, how is that different from like a director?
Great question. So art director is very much just dealing with art like the art assets of the show. So so a director, someone like storyboard, like we have several directors, and the pipeline in animation is so broken down and organized that there's almost a director per department. And so I'm the art director of art. And specifically, our show is a little unique in that we have two art directors. And there's an art director for everything black and white, and there's an art director for everything color. And then our jobs kind of blend into each other. But Steve Lotwait and I both manage the the art team and our own like parts of it. And so yeah, it's like it's a lot of just working alongside of the directors. Usually the director of each episode, like there's per episode, we usually have kind of a breakdown of the episode and kind of look at it together overall of like, what do they want this episode to look like? Usually we're like right on the same page of like, yep, we're gonna go all out on this episode. We're gonna do some cool like sunset part of this episode, and then we're gonna have a crazy musical number, and we'll kind of go through it together, and then I take it from there and figure out what our team has the capacity for. Honestly, there's times where I'm like, this episode's not like we just can't afford to do like a ton of new like palettes for, anytime the colors change, you have to recolor everything. And so anyways, so it's a lot of strategizing and a lot of just like leading the team and hopefully like making a very doable schedule and season. So but yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, I think
it did plenty. It did plenty.
It's kind of the difference. The directors in like the most traditional sense, they're in charge of the story and the writing and then the boards. And then once it's in my hands, all of that's been figured out. It's just now we got to make it look good. It makes sense visually.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, I've seen like some of the background stuff you guys do, like in the show, like when you guys post it on Twitter, and it's really beautiful. It's some really good like background, like say like the park or like the sunset in Big City Greens, or sometimes even like the shot of the house in Big City Greens.
It's a really pretty show. I think it being kind of more comedy focused, the beauty of the show can take a step back to like showcase the comedy a bit more, if that makes sense. Sometimes art can get in its own way when it's like trying to tell certain stories or comedy or whatever. But yeah, no, I think it's a pretty show. I think it's also like an easy show to think that it's like easy to do. I think that it looks somewhat like effortless in a way, but it's like, it's a lot harder than just like the grass is green and the sky is blue kind of thing.
Like you guys, like I said, you guys put in a lot of effort into the show, and it's well, I don't really have any words on how to describe it, but in a way, like I said, the art is beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Now, my next question is, would you mind telling us your journey or story into the animation industry?
Sure. Yeah. I started in illustration, and I majored in illustration. I actually went to art school in Detroit, Michigan, at College for Creative Studies 12 years ago. I graduated in 2010, and that was kind of my path as far as starting out in art, because I knew I needed to do something creative. Like both my parents had really extremely hard jobs and very like 9 to 5. And I was, I did several like waitressing jobs. I was working at a smoothie store. I was a manager at a smoothie store and in Michigan, which is so slow. It's so boring. And I always been really strong in art, the typical like kid who, almost can't like relate to anyone except everyone knows that she's the artist and she'll put all of her attention to the art class and all that stuff. But so I was very much an oddball in school, very much like I have to be an artist, like this is it, like. And so I went into college just like because it just seemed like the thing to do. So I wouldn't say you necessarily have to go to school at my point, but that was like my thing, like let's go to school. It made sense to my mom, like, she had no idea like what does an artist do, but college just makes sense. So we went into school and took a lot of loans out to make that happen. Oh my gosh. And I from there kind of just wanted to be in illustration. I actually had a department like head who like I actually asked about going into animation and he was like, actually, no, don't go into animation. 2D animation is dead and the future is just 3D animation. So, and he was like, and he was also just like incredibly sexist. So he was like, oh, women don't do well in this field. So,
tell that to Dana Terrence and Rebecca Sugar.
Really, that happened. Yeah. And I think we're all kind of the same age realm. I don't know if it's gotten better. But anyways, so I took his advice. I mean, and the illustration department in my school was like way better. It really taught you how to draw and learn the foundations that everyone in animation needs to learn anyways. So I had amazing teachers in illustration. And then after graduating from there, I kind of just was open to moving anywhere. I had an internship at a toy company, so I thought, oh, I'll get into toys and making toys. I was really great at Illustrator on Adobe Illustrator, which you need vector art for toys. And so I started out like kind of trying to navigate what I can do with the skills that I had. And I thought it would be toys, but that industry is super corporate and boring, or like the parts that I saw of it. I worked at a few companies. Fisher Price was really fun and awesome to work for, but they were in Buffalo and it was just kind of like not much other things around there. And then here in LA, I worked at an educational like toy company, and they were just like they were so boring. And actually they ran out of work to give me, so they laid me off. And it's funny though, they said, oh, we'll call you back in a couple weeks when work ramps up.
And they never did.
Well, then I will get back to that. I started working in animation at these really small non-union studios. And I actually had some good experiences and some really awful experiences at these studios. But it was basically my inspiration for getting into animation was one, I've always loved animation. I've always been a huge fan of, just obviously anime. I got into anime and it was like, this understands me. This takes me seriously, like is what I loved about anime in particular. But I also loved comfort shows like Hey Arnold and Rock with Modern Life, and just like, I was totally a Nickelodeon kid. I knew the lineup. Like when I came home from school, I knew Stickly was going to tell me like the lineup for all the shows that were about to come on. I already knew the schedule. I knew it was Rugrats, then Doug, then,
Nickelodeon had a really good lineup of shows.
Yes.
Like I was more of a Cartoon Network person because I used to come home and watch Toonami and all that.
Oh my gosh, Toonami was awesome. It was so good.
Like that got me into anime. That got me into my favorite shows like Justice League, Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon. Megas XLR,
Yeah.
Gundam,
Yeah.
Yu Yu
Same.
Hakusho.
Yeah. Very much the same for me. I can't remember if it was like, because I used to go to Suncoast at the mall and buy whatever DVDs or actually VHS tapes that had like cool anime covers, and it didn't matter what it was. But it's just because the supply of anime was so low at the time that you're just like, oh my God, anime, I will buy this. And I definitely bought a couple of very mature like anime by accident, and being a kid like okay, like when do we
I
get back
used
to
to,
the
I
dragon
had that
plane?
experience too when I was a kid. So you're not alone. You're not alone on that.
Right. And I just had tons of manga, like, but like always incomplete because you're just buying whatever like
Mhm.
Barnes and Noble had in stock. But anyway, so I was always into animation. And I don't think I just ever like wanted to shoot that high as far as like my ambitions. Like really, I could work in animation. I could work like I'd never I don't think I had it in my sights of like I could work at Nickelodeon. That's
Mhm.
insane. Um but I started working in like these non-union places, realizing, oh, my illustration skills really can apply to cartoons. Like a job, like there's many jobs where it's like it's nothing, it's uh you should know how animation works, but really what I'm needed for is to paint backgrounds, is to color characters. And it's like, okay, I know how to do that. I know how to like, I know, as long as you know the foundations of like color theory and values um and things like this, like
Mhm.
you can start to apply that to animation. So I was like, I just didn't really know what jobs were in that field to know I could actually work in it. So once I started working at these non-union state places, and actually I wore lots of hats. I would be a painter one day and I'd be a board artist another day, like because it's non-union, they can
Yeah.
do whatever. And so, and at the time animation was this was like again 2010 2011. Animation was such a weird place. It really was teetering between 3D animation and then just no original shows.
Yeah,
And
because I
this was
remember like in 2010, like
mhm,
I know there was like in mostly Cartoon Network, there wasn't really that much cartoons until like the Renaissance where we get shows like Adventure Time,
right.
Gumball, and regular show. And I read and I on your website that you worked on Adventure Time.
I did. Yeah. I did a lot of freelance for them. The uh some of the painters had to swap out or they
Mhm.
needed extra painters. So I actually started at Cartoon Network on Clarence, and then during hiatuses, I was so terrified that I would not get work, that I would just sign up for everything. So I did a lot of Adventure Time during my like at time, free time, and I also worked on Mighty Magiswords a little bit, and back when it was just an internet, or not just, but when it was an internet show, I didn't actually get any credit for that because there's like no credit for internet
Yeah.
specials at the time, or it was on like the Cartoon Network app or something like
Mhm.
that. And then what else? I think I'm blanking on whatever else I worked at Cartoon Network, but yeah, I was at Cartoon Network for 4 or 5 years. So I kind of would, find myself being able to grab work from other shows just to, honestly, I just loved like being on, other shows and learning, how to paint for other shows. And I think I was just still terrified I'd become unemployed. So,
Yeah, I
um,
get that. I get that feeling a lot whenever, even if
it's
it's like regular
it's
work.
when you're like, yeah, it's when you're like too scared to say no to anything.
And I am too scared to say no to a lot of things. So
I
I'm
believe
with you
it.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. And even, so actually before I got into Cartoon Network, I worked at Boom Studios, which is a comic book studio that was so much fun to work at. I worked at the studio. I wasn't like an artist working for them. I was in charge of putting together their books in InDesign and working with the story editors and designing these comics. And then on the side, I also would get covers. So I would do a Cartoon Network like Adventure Time cover, or gosh, I did like just like a variety of a lot of Cartoon Network covers, and also like creator driven covers and things like that. I kind of got into like just trading covers with other creators too, and being like, hey, will you do like a variant cover for my comic? And we'll just, it was like the pay was very little, but it was kind of all I had at the time. So I was like, yeah, sure. And also it was just a way of like showing that I'm working, like posting like online, like, hey, here's a cover I did. And no one really knew. No one had to know. I was like, paid $200 to do this cover, or something like on the lower end. I also did a lot of color work for comics, which again paid so little that sometimes I'd forget to collect my paychecks. Like I would rather them just acquire like to snowball so that I could actually just like have a lump of money to like to like cash out instead of like $35 here and there, but
that's horrible.
Yeah, no, it was, again, this was like 10 years ago, but it was like very, very, I just realized like comics wasn't going to pay the bills for sure. And I also did like some of my own comics. I would do like booths at comic conventions and stuff. And that was always fun. That was my favorite part about working in comics, is just having like a reason to be behind the table at a comic convention and like drawing. I used to draw a lot of Adventure Time covers, and and so anyways, I finally got a call. I did so many tests to get into animation. I wanted to go into a studio proper with union and healthcare and everything. So I kept applying. It took many years to get into a union studio. And finally I got the call like, hey, do you want to work on Clarence at Cartoon Network? And I was like, yes, for sure. Let's go.
Like, go with it.
So,
like, get into that show.
Yeah. And I was getting paid very, like, again, it was a union show. So there's a minimum. So that really saves your butt, especially for a new artist. I was getting paid like a journeyman rate, which, I was happy to accept. It was way more than I've ever been paid. So, at the time, again, that was like 10 years ago, it was like around 1,500. So it was like amazing. And it was really scary too, because I was definitely a fish out of water working on Clarence, because I didn't know a lot about animation, and I didn't know a lot about, there's a certain language in painting for animation, like, like how do we treat reflection on puddles and windows and mirrors and things like that. Like there's iconic ways that you can go about that. And when you have a few shows under your belt, you can just like, you really can get so much faster at like painting and just going, oh yeah, like I've done all of this before. I've colored all this kind of stuff before. But when you're new, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know how my layers are supposed to be on Photoshop.
I get that a lot. Like when I started out voice acting in 2017, well, I was still a newcomer. I didn't understand a lot. I didn't know you need an agent for that kind of thing. And now that I know the ropes around it, like I have much more experience, and I'm trying to like find a job and whatnot to pay for things like said agent and trying to like get classes. But it's kind of hard to find a job in this current day of age.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder if it's similar to animation. It's like, gosh, getting your first, getting at least one or two big gigs under a belt really does snowball into the next thing and the next thing. It's just almost like, gosh, I just need to step on that. I need to get my footing on that train, and then I'm on the train, but right now it's just like, I did those small studio jobs, and then the studios I worked at were skeleton crews. They would hire like 100 people, and then the show ends and they'd let everyone go. And whereas like once I got on Clarence and I was able to really like prove that I was like a really valuable like painter or reliable, I should say, like suddenly I was getting more work, and suddenly I was like, after that job, I was like already recommended to something else. And I would imagine that's kind of like how voice acting is as well. But yeah, while I was working on Clarence and other like shows at Cartoon Network, my husband was actually developing a show. Chris, him and his brother created two shows together, but one show was greenlit, and that was Big City Greens. And I was in development right with them as far as color goes. Chris, my husband, we've always worked together in art. He actually drew a lot of Adventure Time covers, and I would color them. And we collaborated a lot. We used to work at a few different random like freelance jobs I'd help him out with, or vice versa. So we've kind of always been, he's always been a story guy. He also was in illustration with me at CCS in Detroit. And so we already had this kind of teamwork built in, where we both had our eye on the prize of this like crazy thing, moving to LA and trying to make something out of this. And so when he went into development with his brother, I quickly got in there and was like, I can color whatever y'all need, so yeah, that's kind of how I then moved over to Big City Greens, was or Disney, was when the show got greenlit. I was you usually hire the people you are in development with, but to be honest, I had to prove myself a lot to Disney, that I wasn't just being hired because I was like the wife.
Wait, correct me if I'm wrong on this. So like the creator of Big City Greens he's your...
Yes, my husband. I know, it's sorry.
Nani?
I
didn't know that. I didn't know that.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I skimmed over that. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. I didn't know that. I didn't know.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
I didn't know your husband is the creator of Big City Greens. I'm saying that right?
Yes.
Cricket Green or juice. Best husband material.
Oh my God.
There's two creators, Shane and Chris. Mine is Chris. And yeah, we went to school. Like this whole journey I was just talking about was his too. We went to school in Detroit together. And then we moved out here to LA. We got married and moved out here to LA together. And kind of my inspiration into getting into animation was he was in comics, jumped into animation because it paid the bills, like, and comics and storyboards they can kind of link up, they're kind of similar. And he got his first job on a show called oh gosh, why am I blanking on it?
Did he
Fanboy
want
and Chum Chum.
Oh my! Oh, isn't that's? Oh, I remember that show. I think the creator went on to create Glitch Tech. I think so.
I can't remember, but he did create. He's creating to this day. I mean,
I think
he's doing more. Yeah.
I think he was like a. I think so. I don't know. But I do know that Chris also worked on like Gravity Falls. Did he?
Yeah. Chris is quickly became a really, if I can say so myself, became a really good storyboard artist. And he was a revisionist for a long time out of just choice of trying to balance personal projects. He really wanted to continue his own creation, which was at the time Reed Gunther, which was a comic for Image. And if you can like not get promoted in animation right away and like just work on your own personal art, I highly recommend it. It's like that's the time to like do some big, just personal investment in your own art. And that's what he did. He really I think he was a revisionist on Gravity Falls. Then he became a character designer, and then he went into storyboarding. I think it might have been the first one. After he got a lot of offers to be a board artist, he kept saying no. He wanted to be a revisionist, and not have to work as many hours as a board artist. It's also just like you're putting a lot of your own self into storyboarding. I'm sure that's how revisionists are too. I wouldn't know, but anyways, he eventually like became the board artist on Gravity, got moved over to Wander, and after that Harvey Beaks with Shane, and they became like, from there they created a show that got passed on, and then a show that got greenlit.
I did not know that. That revelation. Yeah. And who knew that he went on to create Big City Greens, like a show that is still going on to this day. And I think it's getting a movie.
Yeah, getting a movie and a season 4, which is unheard of. And also these seasons are incredibly long. Like if this was a Cartoon Network show, I think this would be like 7 seasons or something, because each season is so many episodes. And but yeah, it's amazing. It's been amazing to watch this journey. And then just alongside, it's just the process of working with my husband has been a little bit crazy, like weird. And I get why Disney wants to cover their bases, but yeah, like I worked in development because and Disney was like, yes, your wife can work in development, but like she'll never work on the show. Then when the show got greenlit, I was suggested to be a BG painter. And luckily my art director, Romney Caswell, we already worked together on Clarence, and he really liked my work already. And I actually tested for the show just to be like totally professional, and he really liked my test. So it quickly became like, this would be really good for the show if Kassandra worked on the show, and Romney like really, I think, spoke up for me. And then I became probably a little too like involved, and they promoted me to a color supervisor. And at the same time, the other art director on the show, he was promoted to like lead background artist. And then when Romney left the show, unfortunately, he left to move on to Netflix. But they promoted both Steve and I into the art direction job. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to like add in husband into the mix. But we work on such vast, like completely different parts of the animation pipeline that we hardly have to, well, until recently, until the pandemic, we hardly had to work with each other. Now we work in the same home because we're working, mostly from home. But yeah, it's been interesting. It's like, it's interesting. I don't think I would trade being like on the same show for anything. If anything, it's a little annoying that at the end of the day, we both talk about our jobs and it's like, it's so related. Like, how was your day? I don't know. I worked on being tired, but no, it's yeah, it's a family show. I mean, there's a brother team and me on art direction, and then there's a ton of people from my school that are on the show as well, which is only kind of unique in the fact that when I started in animation, there was no one from my school. Like everyone that worked in animation were like from California art schools. So like once in a great while, you'd see someone from like the East Coast, like from CCS or something. You're like, oh my gosh, hi. But now there's, I know, yeah. But now there's so many more, and even on Big City Greens, there's quite a few artists from CCS, even my graduating year. It's just kind of cool to be like, hey, like, like we were from the same graduation class, and now we're all the way over here. So, but yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that's good. Like you show Disney that you've come to your own, like,
right.
Like just because you're his wife, like they didn't want you to be on the show because they saw that as kind of like nepotism in a way. Is that what?
I don't know. They're just trying to cover their grounds, and and there was always going to be the risk, and it always has been, that other people would judge that I got my job because of like having this connection. But
I mean,
that happened to me even on Cartoon Network, and Chris had nothing to do with my job at Cartoon Network, and somehow people would go, say I somehow got my job because of Chris, who was like at Cartoon Network, or sorry, at Nickelodeon at the time, or so it was just always going to happen. So I was like, you know what, I would work on Big City Greens even if Chris and Shane weren't like the showrunners, because if you look, even at the time, it was at the time the only original show at Disney being greenlit, and it was all these amazing board artists, all these amazing artists, like people that worked on Harold is on this show. Like there are some incredible people on the show, and to work on a creative driven project is always like that's kind of like a job I like would seek, is like, oh my gosh, even when Wander was staffing up, I'm like, wow, Wander, like that would be amazing to work on Wander, because they like hired up the coolest, best artists, and
have the creator of the Powerpuff Girls and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. That is such a high honor.
Right. Yeah.
So my next question for you is, hold on, let me see what we got here. What were your favorite shows growing up? Any that inspires your pursuit in a career in animation? I don't know if I asked that, but
no. Favorite shows first that come to mind. First of all, Sailor Moon was like everything to me. I think it's like the Steven Universe of probably like. I always compare it to Steven Universe in just the sense that it's so takes their audience seriously, and like very much takes like it resonates in like your problems as a youngster, and it still resonates today, like even as a grown up, but
it does.
But it's so serious. It's so like it makes me feel like I identify with this show, and that's for me like my Steven Universe was Sailor Moon. Was like, this show feel like gets me. But then I would say Hey Arnold was important to me. I love that show. And
Harold really has some mature themes in that show. There were things
no,
that made me cry, like Arnold's parents and all
I
that.
know. Again, it took its audience seriously. I think it really said that these kids will get it. Like these kids will um believe that, like these, even telling, like a lot of times we'll be told, like, don't tell a story about an adult going through some kind of difficult problem. It's like kids don't, it's almost like it'll go over a kid's head. It's like, that's just not true. And you have to respect your audience a little more than that. But anyways, going on a tangent, but I loved probably going a little younger too. I loved Garfield and Friends, Bobby's World. My dad was really the reason, probably why I got into cartoons. He loved comics. We read Calvin and Hobbes together. We played a lot of video games together. Sonic Pinball on Sega, or no, was it Sega or Nintendo? I think we might have been on a Nintendo. Anyways, so yeah, early on, it was just like a given. I was really into like nerdy pop culture immediately. I was always like late on like, well, you asked me what my favorite cartoons are, but just to quickly be like, I loved video games, and like my brother was a lot older than me, and
It can
he
be
always had
anything.
like, yeah, seriously. And I was hooked on everything, almost animated pop culture, just kind of like I was in. So I am also like ADHD. So it's just like for me, video games really gave me some new. So is art. It's just like, oh, you can like leave this kid drawing at a table, and I would just kind of like have tunnel vision and just draw forever. I was a latchkey kid too, so like cartoons and video games really gave me a lot of company
Yeah,
when
that's
I
me too.
was home alone,
Yeah, like
or
whenever
at
like
latchkey.
I didn't grow up much with that many friends, so
Uh-huh.
mainly from like middle school, like elementary, middle school. So I usually stayed on the computer and like watch a bunch of shows like anime, like One Piece, Naruto, Dragon
Yeah.
Ball,
Oh, Dragon Ball was
Transformers.
huge for me. Yeah. Gundam was really big. I loved Gundam Wing because of Toonami, but um yeah,
I'm
anime
also
to me really took their audience so seriously, and they had so much feelings, and I just really like could relate to having a lot of like heart like strong feelings, and it was just like good to feel like reflected back at me.
yeah, like like
Yeah.
I even more I get introduced into old animes that my brother and sister used to read or watch. Like I recently just got into Berserk,
Okay.
and I also got into Spy X Family. That's also a good anime
Good one.
that I've heard about. And what else?
Of course,
There
there's
was another.
Cowboy Bebop is like the standard of like
Mhm.
this is like what an animated series could be, is like, so it's just so good.
I have yet to watch the Netflix series, and I don't think I will because
Yeah.
the original is a masterpiece. Like
Yeah.
there's also Samurai Champloo. That's a good one.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, and
Like
then like of course the Miyazaki films, I loved those, of course, and they hold up so well, and it's kind of just an amazing achievement that Miyazaki made things like in the 80s, and you still throw it on, and it's just like so good. It's just so
like
good.
you can go back and rewatch Spirited Away,
Uh-huh.
Princess Mononoke, Kiki's Delivery Service, and you can just have a good time with those movies because they can never bore you. Like whenever do you like, I don't know, you go see movies, right? Do you go to the movies
Oh
at all?
yeah.
They usually do something called Month of Miyazaki, and they show all the Studio Ghibli movies, like Spirited Away and all that. Like
Mhm.
I paid $13 to go see them because like I know
Oh
they're on
yeah.
HBO Max, I know I have them on DVD, but it's such a pleasure to watch anime on the big screen that
Hmm.
it's something I'm not used to, even though I've seen Dragon Ball Super Broly on theaters
Yeah.
because I never really got to see like Pokemon the first movie in theaters or Pokemon 2000, and I
Uh-huh.
know those were like when anime was a big thing in the 2000s.
Yeah. I know. I didn't get to see too much in theater because I just never lived near a big city at the time. So, and at the, I grew up in Michigan, but then I also, in like middle school, moved to the Outer Banks, which is the islands on the coast of North Carolina. And it was very, very like nothing was on the island for especially movies. We had one movie theater with like three theaters. And so anyways, so we didn't really get those coming in. And but nowadays it's so cool to be in a bigger city like LA where, oh my gosh, like I actually got teary-eyed once. I was at a gallery show for like Sailor Moon, and I was just like, what? It might have been obvious, but I was just like, I can't believe so many people like anime. Like,
Yeah,
it's so cool.
it's amazing. Like you have a bunch of these people that just talk casually about loving these things that we love when we were a kid. Like you
Yeah.
get to see it a lot. Like and it's still going strong. Like there are other countries that love other anime, like the new One Piece film Red is making a lot of money, and I heard that people love it. And
Right.
I'm actually looking forward to going seeing that because like I said, I just really love anime. It inspires me a lot. Heck, it
Mhm.
inspired me to become a voice actor.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I have been having a hard time like keeping up, to be honest, because there's so much we have so much access to all anime. Like back in my day, it was just really whatever was chosen to be like filtered over to the US, and of course that's where we get our lousy, like those really bad dubbings, and everything was very
That's the
Americanized.
reason
And
why I haven't watched the Sailor Moon Deke dub. I mean, I used to, but that was the only thing we've had. Turning
I
Usagi
know I
to
can't.
Luna.
I almost am so hooked on that dubbing. I don't know if I can do the new dubbing.
The new dubbing is good. I've watched
Yeah.
Sailor Moon Eternal because it's more faithful to the manga.
Yeah.
But I know people love the '90s one too, so that's good for them. I kind of grew up with the '90s Sailor Moon when it came on Toonami.
Yeah.
A lot of us did. I used to watch the movies.
Hmm. I know. And it's like, it's just a different vibe. Like the original Sailor Moon, it was really funny. Like it really
It was.
had like a lot of funny stuff. And then it was like very limited animation. So, watching it with the lens of like, what do we do in Big City Greens? It's like, oh my gosh, there's just times where it's just Sailor Moon, like her eyes up, and it's like she's fully speaking uh this long like paragraph, and we're not seeing any animation on the screen. Like which I think is kind of incredible. I think anime has something there with like how they can do these extremely expensive productions where there's just this beautiful, beautiful animation, and everything's so posed out. And then they also will have shows that we're like, we know who we are. We're going right onto TV. We're not gonna like, we're gonna make this cheaper budget. Hopefully people are paid livable wages, but like, as far as just like figuring out like a style that you can just put on TV quickly, I think that's also just an interesting art form in itself as well.
Mhm.
Another way of telling a story. And um yeah, and Sailor Moon of the 90s was a lot more a lot less animation, and just again, and we'll see those really long transformations for a reason. They were just trying to cut animation budgets, I think.
Yeah.
So
I think I kind
But
of noticed when they did the whole usual transformation and they reuse like the same shot and it works. It works.
uh-huh.
It still keeps that. It still keeps that.
Oh yeah. I never got tired of it. Of that, of the anime of those. And currently, I mean, so yeah, back in the day, I loved Dragon Ball Z as well. Like I would run home when Toonami had new episodes. I'm like, oh my God, we're finally gonna see the conclusion to Frieza or Cell. Like, was Cell the
Mhm.
one that lasted forever? It was like, oh, and we'd have to rewatch episodes over and over because they would randomly be like, okay, we're not airing new episodes. We're just going to start the
Yeah,
season over.
I think that what happened. I think that also happened d- like during the when the Ocean dub ended and Funimation started doing their in dub housing. So
Mhm.
look like they because Ocean dub did the dubbing for Funimation before they decided to do their own, and they
Yeah.
decided to go back to the first episode before they started doing that, and we got the continuation. Like we got to see Goku versus Frieza. That was such a big thing. I know I wasn't born then, but I started watching Dragon Ball Z even when I was just a baby, and it
Yeah.
stuck to me ever since to the point that I still have my action figures of that.
Ah, oh my gosh. I would grab something as well, but I'm not my I took all my action figures to work.
I still have them on my dresser.
I love it.
I still collect action figures. There's nothing wrong with that, people.
Oh, not at all. I do too. In fact, I 1 second, I'll be right back.
Go ahead.
I got some blind boxes recently.
Ooh, what's
Let's
that?
see. I've got a Sailor Moon blind box to
Ooh.
open still. Sometimes I wait until I'm like having a bad day and I'm like, I have a blind box to open. This is not a blind box. This is straight up just Snorlax, who I really identify, especially when I'm at work. I'm just like a sleepy
I
boy.
really need to start watching more Pokemon. A lot of people tell me I should, but I used to watch Pokemon when I was a kid,
Yeah,
like the original one.
same. Yeah. I actually, I had a problem with Pokemon when I was a kid. I had a real beef with it because it wasn't as serious as Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z. Like Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon to me, and I was watching Cowboy Bebop. Like I was watching some heavy shows. I was reading Bleach, which I
I
had
need to
no
read that.
idea
I need
that
to
would
read that.
last forever.
I need to
Oh,
read
it
that.
lasts forever. But to me, like to me, Pokemon was this like less serious anime. So, and at the time, like kids didn't really know what anime was. So when I told them, oh, I love, Sailor Moon and Cowboy Bebop, they would be like, oh, you mean like Pokemon? And they would say it in a way that was like Pokemon was so immature in comparison that I was like, how dare you? Pokemon
Yeah,
is
that's how I
not.
get. That's how I get. I was more into
But it's
Digimon.
funny. I feel like I get it now because in animation I've always been on like the funny show of the network. Like Clarence is like the funny show, and so a lot of kids like the ugly show, right? Like whereas the Steven fans were always kind of like, oh, I cannot get into Clarence because it's not like as serious or
That's how I kind of felt
some
with
or it's
like with see that's how I've kind of felt with Big City Greens at
yeah.
first, because like I was into more like Amphibia or the Owl House, but when those
I
shows went on
totally get
hiatus,
that. Yeah.
yeah, when those shows went on hiatus and I started watching Big City Greens, I was like, huh, this actually might be a very wholesome show, and I started loving it. And it's honestly one of my favorite shows on the block next to Amphibia and the Owl House.
Yeah, no, and I get that. I think that Owl House might be like the show that you need. But I also look back again and I just think, oh man, I just loved Hey Arnold. I liked hanging out with Hey Arnold. I
Yeah,
would
I
come
like
home
those
from
shows.
school and make myself a snack and just like kind of have something to hang out with. But it wasn't
That's
like deep, it wasn't like I needed, I don't know. it just kept me really good company. And now
That's
I
how
look
I felt
back and
about
I'm like, that was good.
that's how
What's
I felt
that?
about Ed and Eddie. That's how I felt about
Yeah.
Ed and Eddie. That show I grew up with that show. That show is just that show speaks to me. It's just a bunch
Mhm.
of three adolescent boys trying to get some jawbreakers, doing some stupid things,
Yeah.
and I was sad to see it end in 2009 with the movie, but I'm glad it ended on his own terms.
Yeah.
And I'm glad Hey Arnold got its movie too, like the Jungle movie.
Right. Yeah. And that was great. And I just
Mhm.
so now I kind of see Big City Greens like that sometimes, especially when people do like there are fans like of animation that really would rather do like the deeper, like heavier animation. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I love Owl House and Amphibia as well. But I'm honored to do a show that's more like you can just hang out with Big City Greens. You can watch it. I'm always honored when parents say they leave it on after their kid like goes to bed, and I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a really good show. Like
I think
I
so.
still I watch the show. Well, I listen to it sometimes when I'm on the laptop, like doing my fan fiction and whatnot, or
Mhm.
do like trying to do other things. And I usually get a laugh out of things when watching the show, like that whole episode where Bill becomes like a gamer, and that part where we're trying to get him out, and Remy is just screaming his head off being in his inner game, and you can like hear Zeno Robinson going all out in his rage, and it's just
Yeah.
literally one of the funniest things I've ever seen on the show.
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot of funny stuff on Big City Greens, and I'm glad that people are watching it and able to like give their opinion on it. And I'm glad that it's continuing, and it's getting a movie. Now
Yeah.
all we need is a
Yeah.
Tilly spinoff and we're good.
And speaking of voice acting, I'm really proud of how Big City Greens is really like Mariev, Zeno, like these are really unique voices that are now like on TV like all the time now. And I think that's really unique. I also, when Big City Greens started out on Disney, no, we definitely didn't have a budget to put any big, actors on the show or
Yeah.
anything like that. But it serviced us so well because we ended up having the best cast for
Yeah,
these
like y'all
characters.
got Machete in that. You got
Yeah, I
Machete.
know that was wild. Yeah, and Chris and Shane have some great
He's
stories.
great. Chris is great as
Yeah.
Cricket.
Yeah,
He was also on the Owl House too, right?
yeah,
He
yeah.
was
Because him and Dana go
Bill.
back, way back,
Mhm.
and that was just really nice of Dana to like to think of Chris for a role like that. I know. Speak of again, voice like that was just a job that happened for Chris, where Chris was always doing the voice of Cricket for pitching the show, and it just kind of turned out to be like, gosh, now we can't not hear you as Cricket, and he did audition. Um, he auditioned for the role alongside a lot of other voices that wanted to play Cricket, who was actually named Bucket at the time. And 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 we had a ton of different stars. We had stars by like Disney, Disney
Yeah.
stars and stuff, kids auditioning for the role. And it just again, just to do it in the most professional sense of like, we're not just giving, like you're not just getting this because you're the showrunner. It was like he auditioned with a lot of different people and everyone still kept coming back to him. But it turned out to be a job that he's just so like passionate about being a voice actor,
Yeah, I can feel the
and that
passion when he does
industry.
Cricket.
Yeah, and it's just a cool industry. It's really I've kind of learned a lot about it just by watching him and getting to know other voice actors. It's a fascinating industry for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
Now,
it's involved, right? Like you don't get to be on screen. You're really doing a lot of acting just through your voice and projecting that through the screen.
yeah, it's something like sometimes you can use your real voice to to like voice act, and I do that sometimes. Sometimes I use I use like evil voices or high pitched voices for when I do my voice acting. But sometimes I just use my natural voice because I know that people in the industry like to hear that, and I know that's like a big thing right now.
Sure. Yeah. And you know, once you're on like, well, at least for like Big City Greens, Clarence, anything probably animated. I mean, you might know more, but it's like you have to throw in a few extra little voices to do some background characters. So, you know, if you're really listening to Big City Greens, you'll definitely hear Mary Up do like Tilly and then like some random grandma in the background, you know, like everyone has like you know, Shane does a lot of random background characters as well. They're usually the ones that are in like some kind of despair. He does a really good like I'm nervous voice, kind of like that kind of character. Chris does a lot of old man, a lot of raspy random like voices and stuff, and then Cricket. So it's funny, there's really not that many voice actors per episode in a weird way, because there's they do a lot of
I can see that.
yeah. Yeah.
Now, my next question is, and I think this is a little serious one, but what is your opinion on the current state of the industry, such as New Deal for animation?
Yeah. Well, I am a big believer in like our union is as strong as like we, the people of the union, like, you know, put our foot down and really, you know, I'm all for it. You know, it's been really jarring. This like business of being an art director is weird because you're almost seeing both sides of the coin in a way. And all that to say is I'm very lucky to be on a production that has a lot of built-in time for their artists and accommodations. And you know, I can only say that for some, you know, for myself or for my team. Like so to know that there's other people that aren't having like those privileges in this industry, and also everyone should get pay bumps. Like this is insane how expensive it is to live in LA. And so I mean, again, and inflation's just going up, so it's like you can't just keep us, you know, at the same rate as we were 10 years ago. That's bonkers. But and also, you know, I've always been involved with the union. As soon as I got in it, I became a steward. Per studio, there's people that are like representative of their union, and like I would volunteer to have the information on hand. So, you know, if someone needs to know about the union when things are happening, I would hand out flyers for every meeting and all that stuff, because I just believed in building up our union. And we've come a long ways. I don't know if newer people in the union know that. Like I'd literally go to the union meetings 10 years ago and there'd be no one there. It'd be like a few people.
Yeah.
And now you go to a union meeting and the room, like, well, we're not really meeting up in person yet, but like the room like would just fill up so much. There would be no seating left. And it was just, and that is how it is today. Like Zoom meetings are just filled. Everyone's involved. I'd love to see it. I think like it's incredibly hard to get the studios to budge on so much. And with the streaming, it just puts another huge problem. Like now, you know, these studios are always trying to figure out a way to not pay people enough or to change people's jobs descriptions. So really, I know I'm a little scattered, but I'm just like I guess I'll just say I think the most important things for us right now is figuring out royalties. Like the fact that we don't get royalties, that's unheard of in like the rest of Hollywood. and better job descriptions, more detailed job descriptions, I think would be really important to like fight for. And yeah, maybe getting rid of, like I said, when I started at Cartoon Network, I was on the journeyman pay, which is like below union minimum, because the idea was you're being apprenticed by someone. But I think I don't know if that's still like, I think that's being taken advantage of. I'd like to see people should be able to pay their rent in LA and or wherever they live, and I have money to save, and we already have great health insurance, so I'll give them that. But more royalties. I mean, it's just compared to like Hollywood as a whole, like, we're fighting for
you guys are fighting every day for this, and I'm behind you guys 100%, because like you guys work your butts off for all these shows that is getting praise, and rightfully so, but you guys are still getting paid. People are still getting paid less, and it's just really unfair compared to how most people are in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also again, it's I've been really fortunate in my career to be on long running shows.
Yeah.
So I can I hear people going on to shows that are only a few months long, and I just that's really difficult for an artist to have to do that. And that alone, I mean, again, I hope this isn't like the future of animation, is that you only get a job for a few months and then you're done, or these streaming services, they're canceling shows. It is.
I've seen it. I think Warner Brothers is doing something like that too. Like,
hey, editor here. Not trying to interject too much, but please note this video was recorded before the news about HBO Max came out, so sorry, I guess. Anyway.
I think I swear to God, if Harley Quinn gets canceled, I am going to riot, because that show. Ugh.
Yeah. And it's there is a lot on the showrunners and the producers ends to make a show a place you can like work on, and not be overworked. Of course, like, you should never do free overtime or feel like you have to like keep up,
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of like there's a lot there that I think that it kind of, unfortunately, like, I think you have to like stand up for yourself in that situation as well. New artists, value your work and value your time, and know that, like, honestly, if you're awesome, if you're good at your job, like, you're needed. So you have power, and you can say, like, you can speak up and defend yourself, as far as like, don't do free overtime, communicate with people. I think there's a lot of like almost trauma in our business where even like sometimes people will almost like hide information from me as a manager, almost expecting me to like be upset about something. I'm like, no, it's fine, like whatever, but anyways, I'm going on a tangent. I think it's yeah, I'm all for it. I'm always like involved. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to strike. Just tell me to strike. I'm done. I'm gonna go. I'll go visit my family, in North Carolina or something. But
yeah.
Yeah. It's complicated industry for sure. I do have to say though, I sometimes I see all this conversation on Twitter and or the animation Discord, and then I see some people who have yet to even start their careers in animation or in art, and I can see that they're feeling very like almost shocked that the way people are talking about their jobs, and then also just defeated before they even start trying to get in here.
Like
And
I
I
see a
do have
lot
to
of
say, I know, and I hate when that happens, because I do have to say this job still pays me more than I think I could have ever accomplished if I had stayed in Michigan, you know? And so it's a weird line between, I think you can very much appreciate the job that you have, work well, you know, within means of your pay, and even be paid, you know, well in comparison to other people in this country, which,
yeah.
you know, might really not be saying much with the way things are working, but also saying I deserve even, you know, more money or more time, better schedules. And we should have careers that are workable, and then also have a life, and also have a, you know, a save. This is supposed to be a trade, you know, we're supposed to be able to, like, you know, have, yeah, time and flexibility, and that's what I think, you know. I guess I'm just trying to say, like, so I hope no one feels like they shouldn't get into animation, especially like I think of young Kassandra, and if I had been discouraged into coming into this industry, I don't think I would be doing that great. You know, I think I'd be working at, you know, yeah, it's rough all around.
It is. But I get what you mean.
Yeah, like I don't want anyone to feel discouraged. I want the right people to come into this industry and help us out. But yeah.
hmm Now I have 5 minutes. I have one more question, if that's all right with you.
Sure.
What's your favorite video games?
Video games? Okay. I am so slow at playing video games. I love them, but I'm really not great at getting into anything right now. But
I still have not played Fighters yet. I still need to keep playing Kingdom Hearts 3. So
yes, yeah. I I love Final Fantasy. That one definitely is a nostalgic one for me, but also the Final Fantasy VII Remastered was a masterpiece, and
made me love Aerith. It made me love
yes.
Aerith.
And I had so much fun playing Fallout that I went back and played all the old Fallouts, and I never played the most recent that's an online game, but Fallout is so fun. I'd play that game all over again. Animal Crossing, of course, is just like a great.
My friend,
I've played that since GameCube. Like, it's wonderful.
my friend, Kite and Rider, they love Animal Crossing.
Mm-hmm.
They love it so much. They love Breath of the Wild.
That's
Like,
a good one.
Mm-hmm. I'm more into a huge. I'm a huge Jet Set Radio fan, as you
Okay.
may have seen on Twitter, because I just love that game.
Yeah. But yeah, those are definitely my video games of choice. Yeah.
I guess I got one more question. What is your opinion on like Steven Universe as a whole?
Steven,
Just a quick answer.
Again, I think it's like it's really hitting that itch for people where it really takes their fans seriously, and provides a really deep show that I love to see it. I mean, I think a really good, well-rounded network has a show like Steven on it, and then a show like you know, Big City Greens, where it's like you got a show that makes you cry and think about things, and then you got a show that just is kind of fun and lighthearted and funny. But yeah, Steven, gosh, it's been really wonderful to see that show from beginning to now.
Yeah.
And it's really like affected a lot of their fans. I don't know if you could ask for anything more than that as an artist, like having something that people talk about and are affected by it. It's amazing.
It's really caught my heart. Like
Mhm.
Future really like set boundaries when it comes to mental health, and
Mm.
seeing that scene with Steven really like broke me in a way, because you haven't really
Yeah.
seen shows do that before, like address mental health issues with a
Yeah.
main character. And seeing it end really made me cry, because, well, Steven Universe honestly made me realize that I'm bisexual.
Mhm. That's
And
amazing.
mhm,
And
well, I have to.
I hope that like a show like that it just is like, especially because it's like it's going out to everyone in every person on the, in the country, and of so many different ages, and it's a beautiful thing to
Mhm.
see yourself on screen and just get to go, okay, great. Like again, it takes its audience very seriously. And a show like that, I think, finds an audience that will appreciate that. It's like, thank you for taking me seriously. Thank you for
Yep.
like loving the audience just as much as, and I know that the people on the show make a show that they love, and
Mhm.
like, and in turn they have fans that have really connected with it. I think there's shows that are just so genuine,
Yeah, there's like
you know.
tons. There's like Big City Greens, OKKO, The Owl House,
Right.
Ghost and Molly McGee,
Hmm.
Amphibia. There's plenty to go around. Craig of
Yeah,
the Creek. There's that
definitely.
I can think of a few, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, and just a very genuine voice, and I think people
Mhm.
respond to that really well.
That is true.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that's all I have for today, mainly because of the fact that we're almost out. And yeah, I'm
Wrap.
sorry. I'm sorry if I couldn't ask any more questions, or if I interrupted you or anything.
Oh no, this was awesome. And if you want to meet up again, let me know.
Mhm.
And you got my email, and Twitter and
Yeah.
everything. So,
Thank you
but
for
thanks
this.
so much.
Like,
This was so fun. I've
yeah,
actually
me
never
too.
been interviewed before like this. So yeah, this was wonderful.
Like, I'm glad I was able to talk to you about it. Like, you're a cool person. I just
Thank
wanted to
you.
see if you want to talk about it. And we usually talk a lot about, like, sometimes about anime and whatnot, and I felt like I needed to interview you and whatnot.
Yeah, no, same. Same back to you.
Thank you. Now, I would love to do this again. I will agree to that.
Okay, great. Yeah,
Mhm.
let me know.
And I really hope people will see this on YouTube, because this is going to be on this is going to be on the podcast as well.
Yeah, let me know if anyone has any questions too. Like, I feel like I might have been a bit all over the place, and
Oh no, me too.
yeah.
I sometimes I don't really pay it. Sometimes I really kind of just get invested in all this, and I kind
Right. That's the best part. Yeah, just
of.
talking back and forth and everything. But yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you for again agreeing to this. And I hope you guys really enjoyed this talk that we had. This is gonna be for YouTube. So,
Yeah.
but thank you again.
Yeah, anytime.